All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the Commission on Police Practices meeting for Tuesday, May 25th to order at 6:01. We're probably going to move the agenda around a little bit because we have Mayor Gloria is going to be giving us a quick little discussion. So I see his window box has shown up. So I'll probably go a little bit out of order. But first, I'm going to read the purpose of the Commission on Police Practices for anyone who's new that's watching. The purpose of the Commission on Police Practices is to provide an independent investigation of officer-involved shootings and in-custody deaths, and an unbiased evaluation of all complaints against the San Diego Police Department and its personnel in a process that will be transparent and accountable to the community. The Commission will also evaluate and review Sdpd policies, practices, training, and protocols, and represent the community in making recommendations for changes. The mission of the Commission is to hold law enforcement accountable to the community and to increase the community trust in law enforcement, resulting in increased safety for both the community and law enforcement. And with that, Charmaine, can you please do a roll call?
Sure. Chair Hilpert.
I'm here.
Commissioner Case.
Here.
Commissioner Fitch. Commissioner Holtrop.
Here.
Hold on one second. Let me check the attendees room. We might have participants. Brandon, can you check and move over and make panelists? Okay, never mind. Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Dent?
Here.
Commissioner Harrington?
Here.
Commissioner Clark?
Here.
Commissioner Shea?
Here.
Commissioner Craver?
Here.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Present.
Commissioner Dalbert Griffin?
Here.
Commissioner Spruce is absent. Commissioner Neely?
Here.
Okay, those commissioners who are excused are Commissioners Workman, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Taylor, and Commissioner Spruce. Also, Commissioner Chan and Commissioner Pink. Roll call has been taken. Thank you.
Thank you. And then in respect for Mayor Gloria's time, I'm going to go a little bit out of order on the agenda. We're going to do the meeting minutes and non-agenda public comments after Mayor Gloria has a chance to speak. So Mayor Gloria, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much for doing that. It is a big city, everybody. There's a lot going on. But I really want to be here today. And thank you so much for having me, Mr. Chairman, and members of the commission. You know, as your mayor, and I guess I'll say still new mayor, we're not quite 6 months into this, I've been attempting with my staff to try and visit as many of our advisory boards and commissions, in part to express my appreciation for what you do. You know, I recognize that all of you do this because you care deeply about our city, and I'm not sure that your service has always been appreciated or expressed that appreciation the way it ought to. And so I wanted to be here to do that as a part of, again, this general effort to visit with so many of the groups who lend their time and talent to make our city a better place. Mindful that the universe has provided the opportunity for us to be together on the 1-year anniversary of the death of George Floyd. And I want to acknowledge that and honor that. It's a reminder to me about how important it is that you all exist and that you exist in this new form that the voters have created for all of you. San Diegans of all colors and communities came together and overwhelmingly approved Measure B last November. And you all now are the inheritors of that responsibility. And so what you do by nature of the volunteerism is important. What you do in terms of the context of the time we find ourselves in becomes particularly important. And that importance is elevated even more because the voters have given you all much more significant responsibilities. I see and appreciate that responsibility, and that's why I have proposed $1.3 million in spending in my proposed budget to fund this group. to allow you to do the work that you do so well and to do it even better because the times really demand it. I've enjoyed working with your chairman, as well as our executive director, Charmaine Mosley, who I've known for quite some time. And I'm so grateful after my hiatus from city service to come back to City Hall and still find her here because she's wonderful, as well as Commissioner Case, who is a longtime friend and someone who I am amazed by the diligence that he provides in this work that he does on behalf of the city. And I know that he's representative of what so many of the commissioners do. But to work with them, not just to appropriate or recommend these funds to the city council, which I'm confident they will adopt next month, but to go about the work of making sure that it's the second that we have the implementation ordinance passed, that we'll have the funding and the staffing to allow you to do the important work that you do, which is to sit in judgment of cases that are brought before you. I again want to be here to express the importance of the work, the solidarity with all of you. As the strong mayor of this city, I want you to know that I'm aware of the work that you're doing and I'm here to support you as best I can. Again, as evidenced by the appropriation of dollars, as well as the work to do things like create positions that will make sure that these news classifications, that we can fill them quickly. Maybe to make a parallel, the last city budget actually created the Office of Race and Equity. I will tell you that last week, I finally did the interviews for the filling of those positions. That year-long wait is absolutely 100% unacceptable, and that will not happen in my administration. That's why we're working with your executive director and your fellow commissioners to make sure that when this implementation ordinance is adopted, I'm not coming back to you a year from now to fill these positions. That's how seriously we're taking this, and that matches the seriousness of the commissioners who are here. So, Mr. Chairman, I know that you have a full agenda. I know this, you all do this in addition to your day jobs, and you don't get compensated a dime for the work that you do. I just hope that you remember that I'm here on behalf of a grateful city to thank each of the commissioners for what you do. Again, to pledge that solidarity, to make sure that our door is open and that we're hearing from your chairman and from other commissioners as well as staff about the needs that you have. I will do my level best to make sure that you have every resource, every position, every ordinance that you need to do your jobs effectively. And I appreciate the time in which you do it, a time when we recognize that law enforcement is a critical part of our community. The safety of this community is the most important part of the job that I do each and every day. But that comes with the responsibilities of doing it fairly, of doing it safely, to doing it consistently. And you all are the arbiters for whether or not that occurs. I look forward to working closely with you all over the next 8 years and to do what my objective is. And I think this is probably the most important thing I can say to you all. My objective for our police department is to have the best police department in the United States of America. Now, I think on most days we have a pretty good department, but I recognize that the community's expectations are evolving and changing, and that we have to take the high bar that our officers have met and raise it even higher. And I'll expect nothing less than people who are willing to hit that high bar. I believe folks like Executive Assistant Chief Mcgrath are fully capable of doing that, but we will hold them to a high standard. And you all are my partners in making sure that we raise that bar, we hit those high standards, and we meet the expectations of our community in 2021 and the years beyond. Lastly, I would just say stay tuned for some additional work. I hope most of you are familiar with the 11 reforms that I've recommended that we must pursue as a community. We've already implemented one of them, the elimination of gang injunctions in our city. We have many more that must be done, including the fully funding of this organization, which when the department is approved, when the budget is approved, it will happen. But I hope that I can come back to you all in the weeks and months ahead to vet policy recommendations with you to make sure that we're hitting that high bar that I want to establish, that we meet the expectations of the community, and that we have the best damn department in the entire United States. With your help, I think we can do that. And so again, thank you for letting me be here today to express my appreciation. Thank you for letting me share my expectations and vision for our city. Thank you for being partners in establishing this department and meeting the expectations of our voters. And lastly, thank you for your partnership in making sure that we can implement all this fully and faithfully. Mr. Chairman, I know that's all the time we have today. Again, I honor and appreciate the time that you have. I look forward to coming back before this board and this commission multiple times in the future and making sure that we do right by the voters, we do right by the people of the city, we do right by our law enforcement officers, and that we really show something that other cities want to affiliate, because we'll be doing this so well that they'll recognize that you don't got to look to other cities for who does this best, that you can look to San Diego and see a model that works for every neighborhood. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time this evening, and thank you all for your service to our city.
Excellent. Thank you so much for making the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. And obviously, as you know, we'll keep you apprised as to what we're working on, and we've been sending out lots of memos, so they'll keep coming. Thanks
I
again
I read
for
them
being here
all.
today.
I get those emails from Charmaine, and I like it. And Mr. Chairman, you always know where to find me. I'm happy to meet up anytime.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, and with that, let's go to approval of meeting minutes.
Brandon?
yeah.
Brandon, I'm so sorry, and forgive me, but I just caught something that I think we need to correct. The purpose of the commission that you're reading is actually the old version from the CRB. We have a new purpose that was redrafted for the interim commission that was drafted in collaboration with the representative from San Diegans for Justice. And so I hadn't caught that before. I noticed it today, and I have it in front of me if you'd like for me to put it in the chat so you could read the new purpose.
I think if you want, you can put it in the chat, but since we kind of already read it, I don't think we have to totally go over that again, but I will definitely make that correction for the next meeting. All right, so the first minutes, March 23rd, 2021. Does anyone have any edits or revisions to make to the minutes? Okay,
Move to approve.
I was going to say, seeing none, do we have a motion? I heard the motion from Diana. Do we have a second?
Second.
Was that Joe?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. All right, Charmaine, can you call a vote?
Commissioner Case,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Yes.
Commissioner Fitch,
Yes.
Commissioner Holtrop,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Craver,
Yes.
Commissioner Neely,
Yes.
Commissioner Dent,
Yeah.
Yes.
Commissioner,
Sorry, just a reminder, if you're not speaking, make sure to put yourself on mute so we don't hear any background information or talking, please.
yes, please. Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Commissioner Shane,
Yes.
Commissioner Dalbert Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
The chair abstains, motion passes.
All right, perfect. And then the next one, the meeting minutes from April 27th, 2021. Are there any revisions or edits? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, I think it was the same. Diana, I'll take you first, and then Joe as a second.
All right, yeah.
All right, Charmaine, can you do a vote, please?
Commissioner Case,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Yes.
Commissioner Fitch,
Yes.
Commissioner Holtrop,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Craver,
Yes.
Commissioner Neely,
I wasn't present.
noted. Commissioner Dent,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Commissioner Shane,
Yes.
Commissioner Dalbert Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
The chair abstains, motion passes.
All right, perfect. And with that, we're going to go to non-agenda public comment. I believe we only have one, which is from a former CRB member, Greg Denaris. Sherman, can you read that, please?
He's here, so we can probably put him on.
Oh, sure. Let's just let him actually say it instead of, give me 1 second. Greg, I will turn you on so you can speak. Greg, you're up. Go ahead.
Brandon, good evening. Just wanted to congratulate Chief Mcgrath on his promotion. Well deserved. I trust he'll do a terrific job, and I miss everyone there, especially Nancy Vaughn. Big hello to Nancy Vaughn. Thank you, Brandon.
You're welcome. Thanks for attending. And with that, we're going to go into unfinished business. So as
We have one more hand up.
oh, sorry, Evie. Go ahead.
Hi, I feel that the mayor's talk before this meeting has added to the total confusion of the community, including myself. Spoke about working with you for the next 8 years, as if you are the new commission. And in fact, you give that impression because you get called commissioner every time, not interim commissioner. And there is very little mention of interim even in your minutes. And you did start out with both of them, March and April, saying CRB. So I think you're a bit confused as well. The community really doesn't know that you are not the new commission, and you are not. And I don't understand why that isn't made clearer. And why it's been put off in your set of timing for another year. That's ridiculous. They should have been, in fact, I think perhaps one of your jobs might have been to say that that should have been happening immediately after some community input for who the people were that were going to choose the new CEO, so the whole thing could get started. And in fact, it has just been put on hold and has been creating a lot of hassle and confusion in the community. And I don't know how you're going to get that straightened up unless you yourselves take that on. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you. All right, and with that, just making sure. Yep, I don't see any more hands. All right, so with that, we're going to go to unfinished business. As we've kind of talked about in past meetings, we have quite a backlog of cases that we're trying to go over. We're trying to be respectful of commissioners' time, interim commissioners' time, and try to be as efficient as we can. So we're actually doing kind of summary documents when we're doing our case meetings. That being said, we're going to look at the additional June dates and times for meetings. So in the next couple of days, I'll probably be sending out a doodle poll to see what the commissioner's availability is for meetings. Like I said, what we are trying to do is limit any additional meetings that we need to have, but we do have quite a few cases that are coming up. Obviously, over the past year, there's been a lot more visibility of policing, and so we've had, inversely from that, we've had more complaints that have come in. So internal affairs has a higher volume, which then of course comes over to us as the commission. So as I said, probably in the next couple of days, I'll be sending out a doodle poll so we can try to find out what dates work best for all the commissioners, and then we'll get those scheduled out. Does anyone have any questions on that or comments? Okay. Case review. So again, what we're trying to do is we are trying to prioritize cases that have sustained findings first. Obviously, as we get close to that 1 year mark, if a case does not get, or if an officer has a sustained finding and they don't receive discipline within that 1 year per POBAR, they're not, discipline cannot be issued. So we're prioritizing those cases first, and then we're also trying to make sure that teams have a manageable workflow. If teams are getting stuck or they're getting behind, please let Charmaine or myself know, and we can try to help work on our workflow. If we need to reassign some cases to other teams, we can always look at doing that as well. Status of discipline cases. We've been working with internal affairs to make sure that previous cases that have come to either the board or the commission have that had sustained findings, that we're reviewing those discipline cases. There should be folders in your secure Google Drive to review. And I'll be working with Charmaine and internal affairs to make sure that once we have those, that we're making sure you guys are notified that there is discipline ready for you guys to review. And then we want to make sure we get those on the agenda for closed meetings as well. I know we've kind of had feedback on case review, remote case review access. I know we've had both good and bad. I know some people love it. Some people aren't so wild about it. We do still have the ability to currently go into internal affairs to review cases physically there in the IA offices. So I kind of want to open this up a little bit to see if there's any feedback, if people are having problems. Obviously, we can't talk about case-specific matters here, but if there's any issues that you guys are noticing with access to the secure Google Drive, your email, things like that, if you want to chime in now, feel free. And if not, we can always email or call me or Charmaine as well. So does anyone have any feedback or concerns?
I'm sorry, I might have missed it. Did you mention the closed meetings for next month?
I did. We're going to send out a doodle poll to try to make sure we can find out what dates work for commissioner schedules.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not hearing anyone or seeing any. Oh, Patrick, go ahead.
So you're asking for feedback on the remote case review?
Yes.
Okay, I want to say that it has made, again, that it has made a profound difference in being able to manage the workload of case review, especially for those of us who are still taking more precautions because of the pandemic. And I think looking forward to a permanent commission that makes it possible and accessible for a wider diversity of San Diego's public to participate, to apply to be a commissioner. I think building in actively accessible practices like remote case review are essential. So I know that we moved to this model because of the pandemic emergency, but I think it's even for those who want to go into IA and so on, or in the future will want to go to the permanent commission's offices, this makes our job, it makes these roles more accessible to more people. And I think that is a resounding demand on the part of various communities in San Diego. So, you know, I know there are lots of things to work out, get used to, and so on. But I want to remind us of the fact that it's also much bigger than just being able to access things at home. It's broadening access to this commission. So that's it.
Yeah, well said, Patrick. Thank you. Nancy, go ahead.
I want to say thank you to IA for letting us come back in and work on site. I appreciate very much being able to interact with people in IA. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
For those commissioners who are actually working on cases remotely, has the audio issue been resolved?
Yeah, I have
No.
a fix to that I can help people with. If you contact me out of, you know, not here, but it has to do with how web browsers process the audio. I've been able to help Diana and I believe Andrea figure out theirs. Andrea, I don't know if you successfully did it, but I can help troubleshoot that if people are still having problems. I'm happy to talk to you on the phone.
I'll be calling you.
Okay, I'll help you, Miss Clark.
I've been driving down. This is Sheila. I've been driving down. I don't mind. It works for me. So thanks.
Thank you.
Hey.
Just to add real quick, I'm sorry, so what Patrick is talking about has been working, but I've noticed that the audio files do not all have the same format. So some audio files have a different format, which makes them inaccessible. And for those files, we would still have to go to IA. So perhaps there's a way that the format can be changed so that the audio files are all accessible, the way that Patrick has figured it out.
Okay. I noted that on my list. Thank you.
All right, the next thing we have was feedback on the new case presentation format. One of the things that obviously we also had spoken about was trying to basically simplify some of our reports, which Doug will probably be talking about once we get to the rules. And then lastly, the IA office hours and schedule. I just want to remind all commissioners that if you want to go in for the weekend, please make sure to email Detective Amato so she can get you scheduled in for the weekend and they can get staff and resources available at Internal Affairs for us to be there. With that, does anyone have any comments or questions specific on case review related issues? All right. Moving on to new business. So the approval of the CVP proposed transition timeline. I will kick that over to Doug, who is the master of our ad hoc transition committee. He's obviously been doing a lot of work with the whole transition committee, trying to make sure everything's moving smoothly. We have a timeline that seems as appropriate as we can create based on what our best information is at the time. So Doug, I will kick this over to you.
Okay. Included with the materials for the meeting is the projected timeline, and it looks like Charmaine is putting that up on the screen. And as Brandon mentioned, it is something that continues to change as circumstances evolve. We learn new things every day as we are advancing in this adventure of creating a new commission. Like just last night, we learned that we have to create a conflict of interest code and have that approved by the city council by June the 20th. So actually, we haven't added that onto our timeline yet, but that's an example of something that continually happens. The timeline is tied to the budget, and so the timing of the hiring of the positions is what we requested in the budget. And so we simply wanted to have the full commission approve our projected timeline, keeping in mind that it is a draft. We don't know for certain how long it will take to develop for the city council to approve implementation ordinance. We don't know how long it'll take for the meet and confer process. And a lot of things are contingent upon that. And so this is our best estimate, but it's kind of a roadmap of how we get to the ultimate goal of having a fully staffed commission with an implementation ordinance and new procedures. So if there's any questions about the timeline, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a comment, if you'll entertain it, Doug.
Sure.
I do just want to give voice to concern that has been raised recently from pretty wide variety of community members who believe that the vast majority of the commission staff should be hired by once a permanent executive director is appointed. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about that on the transition committee, but I do just want to flag that and note it as a point of concern for a lot of folks.
And it is a point of concern. And part of the concern is if you look at the timeline draft, that we don't envision being able to have the city council appoint a executive director until November of 2022. And so if you wait until then before we hire investigators and so forth, that creates a dilemma. And we're trying to work our way through that dilemma, which is why this is a draft. But I think it's important that we get the draft approved because, as I said, that's the basis of the funding. And if we postpone a certain position, it's best to have the positions created and the funding available for them, so that whenever we do decide to have them hired, we can proceed post haste.
Brandon, are you looking for a motion?
I think, yeah, I mean, if there's anyone else, Poppy, I just saw your hand go up, but I mean, I was gonna say, I think we want a motion to officially approve the timeline. So,
Okay.
Poppy.
I just want to say that what Doug has done and his committee has done an outstanding job, and putting all of this together. It's been an enormous. So I would make a motion to approve the draft.
I'll second.
Before we get to that, Poppy has her hand up, and I want to make sure we have comment on it first. So we'll take that, but Poppy, go ahead first.
I want to echo what I heard Joe just say, which is, and I don't sit on the transition committee, so I feel really able to offer a huge debt of thanks to Doug for his leadership of this effort and to the entire transition committee for their work. I as is evident in today's meeting and other meetings, it's quite a thankless job. And I just want to note all of the tremendous work that's gone behind this, and to offer my thanks. And Doug, ask you a question that might get at resolving some of the concerns of the community at large, to generally ask if you would be willing, before we move to approve, if you would be willing to just sort of walk through maybe some of the key milestones of the timeline that are entirely outside of the control of this group to influence. And maybe that's a way that we can resolve some of the tension that is coming up about the timeline.
Okay, so I won't go all the way to the back, because actually our timeline began with the election, and there were quite a bit of things that have happened since then, including the interim operating procedures, the creation of the department, which we didn't even realize we had to do in order to hire staff and get a budget. We had to create a department and so forth. So if you look on the timeline, we are in May of this year. We are currently in the process of hiring 2 additional support positions for for the office to help Charmaine, who basically is doing 3 jobs. The next position that we plan on hiring is a position which is titled the Assistant Executive Director, because each department gets 1 assistant position that doesn't have to go through the Civil Service Commission. And our goal was to hire that person as soon as possible. And we do intend to have a majority of community representatives on the selection panel for for that person. There will be a special meeting of the PSNLN, Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods committee on June the 24th, and then they're going to bring forward the first draft of the implementation ordinance. The committee may act on it at that point in time, or they may refer it back for some revisions, but it will eventually go to the city council. But before the city council adopts the ordinance, they have to go through a meet and confer, which is a process defined by employee relations law for public employees, and it involves representatives from the city as well as representatives from the Police Officers Association. We have in here, let me see if I can find it, August through December being that timeline. Some people think that is optimistic, and it is would be a fairly quick timeline for this type of a meet and confer, but it's a doable timeline. And then after the meet and confer is over, then the city council has to adopt an ordinance which requires 2 readings, and then it takes a month before it goes into effect. And we cannot select new commissioners until we have the implementation ordinance, because the implementation ordinance will define how many commissioners they are, what the qualifications are, what the selection process is, and so forth. And so we are envisioning between November and March to have the process of recruiting and selecting the permanent commissioners ongoing. Recruitment can occur before the implementation ordinance is adopted, but the process itself and obviously the appointment can't happen until the implementation ordinance is completed. And then it is our plan to have the new commissioners, once they are appointed, appoint the permanent executive director. We recommend that be a national search. That takes about 6 months, since we put in our timeline from April to October, the selection of the executive director. And then there's an additional month there, because then the position has to be appointed by the city council. So those are all of the major steps. And so we can't have an implementation ordinance until we have a meet and confer, and then we can't hire. I'm sorry, not hire, but we can't have new members appointed until there's implementation ordinance, and we can't, according to our recommendation, have a search process for a new executive director until we have new commissioners. And so that kind of is the timeline and how things are kind of dependent upon another. And so if any of these things get backed up, if the meeting confer takes longer, if the search takes longer and so forth, and that would affect the timeline. Does that answer?
Sorry, go ahead.
Did that answer your question, Poppy?
It absolutely does. And thank you again, Doug. I appreciate you walking through that.
And then Doug, I know typically what we try to do is we do agenda public comment before we go to each item. I don't know if I just missed Kate's hand up, so I wanted to give her an opportunity to do public comment on the timeline. So Kate, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just kind of had a question. I don't really understand why the interim commission needs to adopt this timeline. I thought it was just a working document, and it keeps changing like almost every week in the transition committee. And, you know, as Patrick said, the community is very upset about how slow everything is. And we're kind of hoping that at some point things can get pushed up. But I think actually adopting it makes it sound like it's kind of stuck. So my suggestion is that it just be continued as a working document rather than adopted, because my concern is that there might be a feeling that once something's adopted that it can't be changed. And I know you've already talked about how it might be changed. So what is the purpose? I just thought that's what it was. It was just kind of a working document. I mean, I've worked on it every week with you guys. So I mean, I understand where this all came from, and I'm not really disputing what's in it. I just think it's, in my view, not a good idea to like adopt it as something that may sound unchangeable.
You know, and I think part of she raises a good point. And part of the reason was we were getting questions from city council members at various hearings and so forth. And we felt that it might be helpful to have the full commission endorse it. And in our work plan, which we also adopt, is also a work in process. And so, I mean, I'll leave it to others. If other people think that it's not necessary to have a vote on it, I'm comfortable with that too, as long as there's been full discussion here, and the transition committee feels comfortable with the representing the full commission. So maybe we should entertain some more thought on Kate's question. It's a good question.
Nancy has her hand up. Go ahead, Nancy. No, I guess not. She just shook her head no.
There it goes. I got
okay,
it.
There we go.
Sorry. It's a draft that you've brought, Doug, and I think for us to endorse a draft is not making a permanent document out of it. I think we should go ahead and vote on it. I don't think it hurts anything, in other words, to go ahead and vote on a draft of the document.
And it does say tentative at the top, so it is subject to change. So,
well, I think, I mean, to Doug's point, I think we've tried to make it as clear as possible that this is with the best information we have at the time. And obviously, as we get new information and things change, Doug brought up a really good point. I think when we first started working on this process, we didn't realize that there actually had to be an office of the Commission on Police Practices before anything else could happen. So that had to be something that got added in there. So we do try to make it very clear. This is a draft. Every page has draft on there like 2 or 3 times. It says tentative. But I mean, I think to Nancy's point, I personally kind of like the idea of the full commission kind of voting on it, or if anyone has concerns about it, that, you know, I think it's a good opportunity for people to say like, hey, I disagree with this. I think we need to make a change. So we can at least get everyone's, you know, feedback on there. But yeah, I would also be in favor of having the commission at least kind of normalize it to be able to, when we then take it to the public and we take it to City Hall, that, we can say like the whole commission is reviewed and agrees with this.
Do we have a motion that's been made yet?
Yes.
So Joe made a motion, and
Just a reminder for everyone to mute themselves if you're not talking.
Okay. Maybe the motion can be worded that the commission endorses the timeline as opposed to adopt it. Is that okay, Joe?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine with me.
and I'm sorry, I don't remember who was the second on that one.
It was
Nancy.
me. And
Nancy,
yes,
okay,
it's okay with me too.
perfect. Okay, so we have a motion on the table from Joe, a second by Nancy. Charmaine, can you call a vote? And we're changing it, instead of being approval, it's endorsement of the CVP proposal, proposed transition timeline.
Okay. Commissioner Case,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Yes.
Commissioner Fitch,
Yes.
Commissioner Holtrop,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Doug, with all apologies, because I've appreciated these and I think they're useful on the committee, but I think I have to vote no because of the community concern about the hiring schedule. And so I just want to register that so it stays on our radar.
Commissioner Craver,
Yes.
Commissioner Neely,
Yes.
Commissioner Dent,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Commissioner Shea. Commissioner Shea,
Yes.
Commissioner Dalbert Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And I wasn't called, but I'm officially an abstention.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, just for the record. All right.
So the vote is 11-01. Thank you.
All right,
No,
the
that's
next
not
item
the
we have-
vote. Sorry, it's 11-1-1. I voted no.
Noted. Thank you.
And then the next item, Doug, unless you had anything else on that one, it's the approval of proposed selection process for permanent executive director as an action item. And I know Patrick actually had emailed us a question earlier. So Doug, do you want to kind of restate what you had mentioned to Patrick about what this initiative is here?
Right. And the purpose of this motion is so that we can send a position of the commission to the deputy city attorney who is drafting the implementation ordinance with the goal of having it included in the implementation ordinance. Measure B states that the executive director serves at the will and direction of the commission, but it states that the appointment and the setting of the, I think setting of the initial salary is set by the was determined by the city council. So the appointment is actually made by the city council. What the Measure B was silent on was what the process is for selecting the executive director. And it's the opinion of the transition committee that the intent of the of Measure B is that the commission, and this would be the new commission, would be the body that selects the executive director, and then they would send their nominee to the city council for appointment. And for future executive directors, it would be the commission that interviews candidates and makes a selection and gives it to the city council to appoint. The concern being that based on some comments made by some city council members at some public hearings, it sounded as though at least one city council member wanted the city council to conduct the search and make the appointment. And to us, that is not what the intent of Measure B is. We believe that the intent of Measure B is that if the commission is going to be independent, the commission should choose its own executive director. And so that is the intent of the motion, is to recommend that the executive director be selected by the commission and appointed by the council. And I would make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All right, before we get to the actual motion, I want to make sure it's open for the commissioners to ask any questions or make comments. So do any commissioners have?
Do we need to do public comment first, or?
No one has their hands up.
Okay.
So with that, for any commissioners, does anyone have questions or comments they want to raise? Okay, I'm not seeing any. There's a motion on the table by Joe, a second by Doug. Charmaine, can you call a vote?
Can you repeat the motion, please?
Okay. The motion is to recommend that the implementation ordinance state that the selection of the executive director be made by the commission and appointed by the city council.
Noted. Thank you. Now for the vote, Commissioner Case,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Yes.
Commissioner Fitch,
Sorry, yes.
Commissioner Holtrop,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Craver,
Yes.
Commissioner Neely,
Yes.
Commissioner Dent,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Commissioner Sheng,
Yes.
Commissioner Dalbert Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
and the chair abstains. Motion passes.
So that one, just for the official record, it was 12-0-1. All right, the last item for new business, the approval of proposed procedure for handling disagreements over findings between the CPP and Sdpd.
Okay, this was put on the agenda as a potential action item. And as a result of our transition committee meeting last Friday, we decided not to pursue it as an action item, but for the benefit of the commissioners, I can give them a little history of what we were thinking. As you know, under the old CRB, if there was a disagreement between the CRB and the internal affairs that could not be resolved, the commission could make a motion to have the mayor serve as the arbitrator. And we thought that it would be helpful to have a similar process for the new commission, so that if the commission disagrees with an IA finding, or especially on those cases where we do our own independent investigation, and if that investigation had different findings than the department did, we wanted to have some way of having a neutral body or person resolve that difference. And we talked about the possibility of a mediation as opposed to binding arbitration. We talked about who might do that. We talked about a panel that might include retired judges, former grand jury members, etc. And we spent a couple of meetings discussing that, and we referred it to our legal counsel, and our legal counsel came back and said it'd be very difficult to do under the language of Measure B, that it would be kind of exceeding what the measure envisioned. And so then, based upon the feedback from our legal counsel, we decided not to pursue that idea. So not to pursue that idea, and so we do not have a motion to bring forward at this time.
And then we do have a public comment on this. So I'm going to go to Kat first, and then we'll go to commissioners. Kat, go ahead.
Hello, thank you. Well, I'm so happy to hear that you're not deliberating on this specific item, but I just want to reiterate As you heard from your counsel, the public demanded that the CPP is the entity to hold police accountable, to investigate critical incidents and complaints, and be sure police follow policy and that policy is fair and appropriate. The commission is independent and there's no need for anyone else to decide whether the CPP's finding is right. When you disagree with IA, you are the commission that decides whether SDPD is right. You are the end of that road. The CPP should command the SDPD to make the proper finding, just as the mayor did before. Your commission serves over the SDPD and occupies this role in place of the mayor. The mayor and the chief must adopt your findings. Then we need accountability. You must also determine what should happen next, how officers and or the department should be disciplined, firing, canceling of pensions, etc. Those are the things that we need to happen for accountability. If the CPP decides how policy should be changed, but not how discipline should be handled, then how do we accomplish accountability? And how do we rid ourselves of bad cops and bad policing? Most importantly, how do we achieve trust between police and community? Thank you.
Thanks, Kat. And with that, I will now open it up to any commissioners for questions or comments. All right, I'm not seeing any hands. So with that, since it was a potential action item, we don't have any action on this. So if there's no final comments, we're going to move on. Okay. Next, we're going to go to committee chair reports. Nancy Vaughn, continuing education.
I do not have any list of educational topics at the moment. We seem to have so much to do at our open meetings that we don't have time for education at this moment. So as soon as we have some spare time, I will come up with something. But one of the things I thought we should learn a little bit about is restraining orders. We do run into them occasionally as we review these cases. And the issue in the case that we heard tonight in closed session was troubling. I just thought we should get somebody from a retired judge or somebody to come and talk to us about that, but that'll be later when we have time for it. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Patrick, Outreach Committee.
Thank you. I don't have much to report. I attended I've done a number of events where I was asked to come attend various meetings, forums, and so on. I've made a few presentations, most recently to the Tom Homan LGBT Law Foundation, co-sponsored by the local Bar Association, the Earl P. Gillum Law Foundation, La Raza Legal, Pan Asian Legal, and Southeast Asian Legal. It was a wonderful event. And I want to say, since we're in a public meeting, that I'm happy to continue to do that. Of course, I don't speak for the commission. The only person empowered to do that is our interim chair. But I'm happy as a community outreach person to come to any meetings for groups that would like me to attend. I'd also like to note that Steve attended. Steve, can you say a word or two about the event that you attended last month on behalf of the Outreach Committee?
Sure. That's a public forum organized by the San Diego Asian American for Equality. And that forum invited the DA Summer Stephan, as well as the Chief Nislai, to publicly discuss the recent surge of hate crimes toward Asian populations in San Diego. And both of them address the issue, and then and answer questions from the public. So it was a pretty good opportunity to exchange ideas and to get a better understanding of the issue and how the law enforcement are going to address and what the public can do when they encounter this kind of crimes.
That's great. Thank you so much, Steve. That's a heavy lift for, especially for such a disturbing and intense rise in anti-Asian and anti-Asian American violence. It does make me wonder if maybe the commission might, continuing education might want to host a bystander training or a discussion from those who do bystander trainings, which would help to support a more community-based response to these troubling incidences and their rise. Is there anyone else who has attended a similar event as we're putting together our report? Anybody else have a similar kind of presentation they've made?
Or any,
Andrea?
Yes, not that I have an event, but I wanted to invite you, Patrick, to come and join the reentry community to give a presentation, because I see a lot of connections between the work that we do here and the work that we do in the reentry community. And I'm more than happy to connect you to the right people. I think the reentry community, where we work with individuals in custody, some of the people we work with get into custody many times during the year, and they have very frequent law enforcement contact. And so I think it would be very good for this community to hear about the work that we do here.
That's great. Let's talk, let's schedule it. We can talk after. The other thing I'll note, so we're going to plan another community forum, or several of them, as soon as we receive a draft of the implementation ordinance. I mean, the day that we get it, I will schedule that forum and schedule it to happen as quickly as possible after we receive the draft. I don't want to try to get it on the books until we actually have the draft in hand, because my understanding is that we were going to get it this week, but that seems not to be happening. And so I don't want to schedule something and then not have the thing we're going to talk about in hand. So that'll be the next official community engagement event. And that's all I have. Though, Charmaine, were you trying to get a word in?
so I just want to make sure that everyone that's on the outreach committee had a chance to inform the commission, the interim commission, as to what they've been presenting out to the communities. I know we have Commissioner Clark that's on that outreach committee as well, and she's very active in the community. So Commissioner Clark, do you have anything to report?
This time I don't. I've been keeping pretty close to home because of the COVID. So I don't at this point.
Okay.
Ms. Clark, for future events, I'm happy to work with you to provide support for anything you want to plan, or to provide backstage labor or anything else. So
thank you.
Okay, you bet. That's all I had. So hand it back over to you.
Okay, thanks. I just want to make one quick correction. You had mentioned that I, as chair, am the only person that's authorized to speak on behalf of the commission, and it's actually either the chair or the executive director. So,
oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I just as a formality, and just the two of us officially are the mouthpiece for the commission. And then, of course, what we've done sometimes is we've delegated that to certain people. Like, so in the past, I've had Patrick talk to the media about outreach events. Doug has spoken specifically about transition events. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify, it's not just me that's the official spokesperson. It's Charmaine and myself.
Thanks for that.
Rules Committee, Doug, you're up.
Okay. There were two items that the Rules Committee considered last Thursday, both of which we discussed at some length at our last open meeting. The first was streamlining of case reports. And the issue is, given the workload of commissioners with the increase in the number of cases and in anticipation of having even more cases in the future, we thought that it would be helpful to come up with a way of streamlining our case reports, because writing and presenting the reports can be very time consuming. What we decided to do at the Rules Committee was to do something on a trial basis, and it would be to ask the volunteers, and there are 3 of us, it's myself and Kevin and Nancy, to draft what we think a streamlined report should look like. And in general, it should look somewhat like an audit report, but with more detail. And the more detail depends upon how complex the case is, and also whether or not you agree or disagree, well, whether or not you disagree with internal affairs and so forth. And we also need to make sure we have enough information in there for Charmaine to be able to include everything that she needs to enter into our database for annual reports and our letters to complainants, etc. And so each of us, next time we start a new case, are going to, instead of using our traditional report format, we're going to streamline it and abbreviate it to a certain extent, and present it to the commission at our closed meeting, and then get feedback from the other commissioners. And if we hit upon something that we think makes sense, then we'll go back to the rules committee and codify it in the form of a standing rule. The second issue was the issue that we had considerable discussion on at the last open meeting, and we didn't have a consensus on. And that was the issue of the presence of police department representatives during our deliberations in closed session. You may recall, I think everybody here on the commission recalls, that back in January, when we adopted our new bylaws and rules, we changed our previous rule. And the previous rule specified that the representatives from the police department, which included the police department, the internal affairs captain, the lieutenants, and the executive assistant chief, as well as the commission liaison, could be present during the closed session. And we limited that so that the representatives from the department are present to hear the case being presented and are able to answer any questions the commissioners may have, but they are dismissed and they're not present for the deliberations, nor are they present for the vote. And there were several commissioners who liked the previous system that the CRB used better and wanted to go back to that system. And so we discussed it at length. That we had a considerable public comment. We got over 170 comments via the web form. All of those were opposed to allowing the department to be present during the deliberations and the vote. And we also had, I forget the exact number, but it was about 8 to 9 people who joined the meeting in person via web, as an attendee, and all of them also spoke against it. And so a motion that was made to change our procedure, and that motion failed, and so we do not have a recommendation to make tonight, because we're not recommending any change. It was brought up that the part of the reason why some people wanted to go back to the previous way of doing it was they thought that it was important for the department representatives to hear what the concerns are of the commissioners that are expressed during deliberations. And a couple of points that were made both before and after the meeting were that there are other ways of doing that. For example, when they come back into the room, if there was something that we felt was important to bring to their attention. So for example, if a case was handled within policy, but the commission felt strongly that it was poorly handled, we could give the department representatives that feedback. In addition, the final part of our reports, which is team issues and concerns, which usually involves recommendations to the department or recommendations to our policy committee for policy changes, those are made when the department representatives are present. And so anyway, that's a long way of saying that we considered the issue, and the decision of the rules committee was not to change the rules, and that the representatives from the department would not be present for the deliberations and the vote. And that's the end of my report.
All right, thanks. And then you're also up for the handbook committee, but I know there's not much going on there, so you could probably skip over that one.
Yes, thank
Unless
you.
there's anything you want to say. Yep.
Nope.
I will take over for policy. Earlier this afternoon, we actually did get I would say a preliminary response from the police department about our protest policy recommendations. I think right now it's an internal document. I did reply back to them asking for a little bit of guidance on that. What we've promised to do is once we get a reply that we were going to make it public, but obviously if it's a confidential document, we need to make sure that it's not confidential before we put that out there. Largely what they did is they broke out recommendations into 3 parts, and I'm sure the executive chief will probably bring this up during his moment a little bit later. They basically broke out into 3 parts. The first one are things that they will make immediate agreements. They're in an immediate agreement to address those, and they'll add those to the current policy. Part 2, it's recommendations that we've made, which they believe, they being the police department, are largely incorporated already or addressed in other pre-existing department policies or procedures. Just as a refresher for everybody, a lot of the recommendations we had things like restate existing policies, for example, like body camera policies and officers' responsibility to identify themselves when asked. Those are in other areas, but we did ask for that to be restated in the protest policy. And then they had part 3, which is an area where they felt that the recommendations are either operationally or legally problematic to include. So we got that earlier this afternoon. I think it's Charmaine, myself, and then we need to look at it. I believe it's it's close to a 20-page document, so we need to review that, and then we'll have some feedback. And as I said, once we get the official response, we're going to put that up on our website, and we'll send that to all the commissioners so they can see what the comments were. Also in that memo, there were 5 other recommendations we have not yet heard back on. And again, I think that's something that Mcgrath might be talking to in a little bit. And then I'm going to be working on scheduling our next policy committee meeting. Right now we have about 4 items that are going to be added to that agenda. So I'll be sending out an email or a doodle poll to all of the members of the policy committee to see what dates work for them. I'm thinking we'll probably need about an hour for that meeting. So high level, that's policy committee. Kevin actually sent me a text while we were on here. He basically said there was a work emergency, so he had to leave. So we probably just going to skip the recruitment and training. I think we talked about in our last meeting, we did have a training for our new commissioners. That was that kind of like a inside Sdpd type training. So they were able to use the firearm simulation training. They got to see how detentions and handcuffs and restraint devices, how those things are utilized. So I think that was really helpful. I know Charmaine and I were down there for that, and I think it's something that's always good for our new commissioners to have that training, because they need to know what the police are trained. So when we're reviewing cases, we kind of know what their side is, so we can be able to figure out how policies and procedures are being applied. Charmaine, did you want to add anything on recruitment at all?
No, I don't have anything to add.
The next thing was the Citizens Advisory Board. They were supposed to have a meeting on the 17th. They were 1 person shy of quorum, so that meeting got canceled. They were supposed to be meeting yesterday as well, and that meeting also got canceled. So I try to attend those when I can. The one thing that I did propose to the chair of CAB was that we, as back when it was the CRB, we would actually give presentations of what we do, how complaints are categorized, and that whole process. I actually offered to give a training for CAB members during one of those meetings of kind of what the CPP does, how it works, and how it's different from CAB. So I haven't heard back if they wanted me to do that, but obviously I'll let you guys know once that happens. And next up is Doug with the Ad Hoc Transition Committee.
Okay, the first item there is the budget update. On, I think it was May the 11th, we had our budget hearing before the City Council, and I think that went well. And then on last week, I think it was on the 20th, if I remember correctly, the City Council had the presentation of the mayor's revised budget, and everything that we had requested through the transition committee was either in the original budget or was included in the revised budget. And so essentially everything that we have asked for in terms of staffing and facilities and training requests, et cetera, has been included in the budget. And so that's good news. As I think I reported previously, all 9 council members included the commission in their budget priorities. The last step of the process is on June the 14th, when the city council will adopt the full budget. Between now and then, the city council members write their individual budget memos recommending any changes to the mayor's budget. And so, but I think the bottom line is that we're looking good. Everything that we have proposed, the mayor's office is included, and we've received support from city council members. And the only comments that we got from city council members really had to do with the timing issue. Council member Monica Montgomery Staff was one of the ones who raised the issue of hiring a permanent staff before we have a permanent executive director. And then the issue of a general counsel came up, with some suggesting that we have to hire the general counsel sooner rather than later. But our response was that we wanted the general counsel to be somebody who was hired after we had new commissioners appointed and probably after we have a new executive director. We have included, however, in the budget, in lieu of having our own staff attorney for the current fiscal year, to substantially increase the contract for our outside counsel. And so it's increasing from $25,000 to up to $180,000 because we envision that our legal counsel is going to be having a lot of work to do. And the current contract expires in September. And so we will be proceeding with a new contract. In terms of staffing update, I think I mentioned previously that we are in the process of hiring an executive assistant as well as a administrative aide. The administrative aide will do primarily 2 things. Will be responsible for processing of complaints and doing all the paperwork in terms of the record keeping, communication with complainants, entering into the database and so forth, and also will be responsible for budget and finance issues. And then our current goal is to have the next person hired be the community engagement director. Also with regard to staffing, do you have a question, Charmaine?
You want me to add more to the executive assistant and the admin aide positions?
Sure, go ahead.
So we received 30 applicants for the executive assistant position, and out of those 30 applicants, I sent an email out to, after reviewing all of them, I sent an email invitation out to 10 of them, and 2 of the candidates withdrew from the process. So we ended up last week interviewing 4 candidates and agreed to move 2 of them forward. Out of the 2 that we moved forward, 1 decided to withdraw her application. So we're down to 1. So I'm doing background right now and reference checks on 1. And then I'm still trying to close out that interview process, which is a long process. And then we received 429 applicants for the admin aide position. Yes, I was quite overwhelmed and surprised by that number. So I haven't had a chance yet to go through the applicants and try to figure out who we're going to move, send an invite to. But that's on my list of things to do, and I'm hoping to have the interview scheduled within the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Okay, and then also with regard to staffing, we learned as we've worked our way through the process that in order to create a new managerial positions, you have to do 2 steps. First, or maybe 3 steps. You have to create a a job description, and then you have to get the Civil Service Commission to approve it as being an exempt position, which means there's not an hourly position, it's a managerial position. And then you have to actually get the city council to adopt an ordinance to create the position. And so, and the deadline we were given for that a couple of weeks ago was the day before or the day after, because we didn't get the memo because we weren't a department yet. Anyway, we've been working with the Human Resources and Finance Department to go through the process. And on June the 3rd, the following positions will go before the Civil Service Commission, the General Counsel, the Supervising Investigator, the Investigators, the Policy Analyst, and the Performance Auditor. And so hopefully that'll all go well.
I just wanted to add that it's quite a long process. And I want to thank the chair for sitting in on the interview panel, as well as Reverend Gerald Brown. The packet is huge that we have to abide by. It's the same questions for everyone. You have to stick to like the script, and then like afterwards, it's like a lot of rating and procedural work. So I just want to note that it's a long process. What we thought would have been probably a month has turned into maybe 2 months. It might be a little bit longer, but it is a long, it is a long process to hire.
Okay, and so I think that's it for staffing. And then for the implementation ordinance, as Patrick mentioned, we were initially told that we would have a draft of the implementation ordinance before Memorial Day. But when we were told that, I think the PSNLN meeting, I think they were still anticipating that it would be considered at the normal regularly scheduled PSNLN meeting the second week in June. And there is now going to be a special meeting of PSNLN on June the 24th. And so we're not sure when we're going to see the initial draft of the implementation ordinance. We were asked by the Deputy City Attorney whether we were interested in drafting the standard operating procedures for the investigative process. And we are replying that we are interested in doing that. And there were some additional questions that the Deputy City Attorney had. And so we're probably going to set up a meeting with her and some of the transition committee and our council to answer her questions. And then on the office space update, Brandon, Charmaine, and I met virtually with, is her name Karen, Charmaine?
Yes.
Karen Johnson, is that right?
Yes, correct.
I got it correct. Talking about our space needs, our goal, as you saw from the timeline, is to be able to obtain and furnish and be ready to move in by September. Again, that may be something that is optimistic. And if the staffing timeline lags, that may not be a huge issue if the facilities timeline lags with it. But that's what is happening. We indicated that our goal would be to have a place downtown as opposed to Kearney Mesa, where they have some other options. Anyway, so they are looking at some options for us given the parameters that we gave them, and we should be hearing back from them in the near future. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have and invite any commissioners who are interested to come in and join us for the fun every Friday afternoon at noon, which is when we normally have our transition committee meetings. There's a lot of balls that are in the air, and seriously, if people are interested and have some input, the meetings, we would encourage you to attend. And that's it.
Doug, I don't know if
Andrea.
fun is the right word, but I would like to say that you've done an extraordinary amount of work. And I know somebody's already a couple people have already mentioned it tonight, Joe and Poppy, but it can't be said enough that your behind the scenes work for this committee is nothing short of, I don't even have an adjective to use. Just thank you.
And Andrea had her hand up, but I agree with everyone else saying Doug has put an amazing amount of work in the transition, and just everything involved with it. It's almost like a full-time job for him. So yeah, I think all of us join everyone else in thanking you for all your work on that. And then Andrea, you had your hand up at least for a while. I don't know if you still do.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I was interested to know where the positions were posted because I couldn't actually find them posted anywhere. Not on the city.
It was probably posted on the city's website back in April. And there was maybe a few weeks window of opportunity for people to apply.
Mhm.
I can find out and get back to the commission as to where exactly it was posted.
Awesome.
But the process moved by the process. I'm just like getting familiar with this process, and it moved kind of fast.
Yeah, and and the only reason why I'm asking really is because I was wondering how long the posting was up, and also if it had enough time for that posting to circulate into the wider community, so that the best candidates could apply. And I'm late with that question. You know, that's neither here nor there, but it's just something that came up for me.
It's fine. I mean, with the 429 applicants, that was an overwhelmingly large number, considering to the executive assistant position, which we had only 30. But it is like a work in progress and a learning curve, actually, for me, and then Doug as well, and Brandon, when we're going through this process. So thank you for your question.
Yeah.
I know it was also posted on governmentjobs.com, I believe. So I mean, Charmaine can follow up exactly on where they've put that out, but I know it's on the city website, and I think they've syndicated it out to other job boards as well. But for the specifics, we'd have to probably talk to personnel to get that information. Any other questions for Doug on transition related issues? Okay, not seeing any there. I'm going to try to go through the chair's report rather quickly. Just a reminder for everyone to please make sure you do your volunteer hours in Better Impact. Again, I find it's easiest if we do this monthly. I used to, back in the day when we had it on a piece of paper, I used to wait till the end of every quarter, and it took forever to do it. I find it's easiest if every couple of weeks if we do that. But again, we use that information to report back. We put it in our annual report. We let City Council and the Mayor's office know how many hours that our commission is actually volunteering for the city. Last year, Charmaine, you can probably correct me, I want to say it was just shy of 5,000 hours.
Yes.
I want to say it was like 4,800 or something like that. So we do put in an amazing amount of hours. And to be honest, I think that number is probably low, because I think we tend to underestimate the time we put in at meetings, doing our outreach related things, case review. So please make sure that you do your hours. If for any reason you're having problems getting into the Better Impact system, again, let Charmaine or myself know, and we can try to help you out on that one.
Yes, please don't wait until last minute until y'all receive an email from me, because, you know, I know it's easy to fall into the, okay, I'll get to it. But right now, I don't have time to send those email reminders out. But when I do, I go into the system and I try to figure out who hasn't been submitting their hours. And then also when somebody's asking me how many hours the commission put in, that's important as well.
The other thing I want to remind everybody on is we did send out committee assignments. We sent out a spreadsheet for everybody. Everyone needs to be on at least one subcommittee. So if you haven't already selected one, or if you'd like to change the subcommittee that you're on, we'll send that PDF back out to everyone again. But we need to make sure we get everyone on at least one committee. And then, like I said, if you want to switch, say for example, you're on rules, you want to go over to policy or vice versa, now's a great time to hop to a different one. If you choose to be on more than one committee, you can be on all of them if you wanted. The only issue is we can only have 7 members per committee. So if anyone wants to send me an email with a committee they want to be on, just let me know. I'm happy to get you moved around. I'll get that document updated and I'll send that out. The other item we have is our work plan. Charmaine, can you scroll down to that one? And I know Charmaine's been trying to make a bunch of edits kind of on the go as we've worked through it. I did want to quickly go through each of the items, and I know a couple of people here who are chairs of some of the subcommittees aren't here or aren't available.
Sorry, my computer.
What I want to, I was gonna say, what I wanted to do is try to quickly go over the draft, and we can try to make any edits if it works. And if technology is not working, then we can always try to do it by email as well. The work plan is one of the things that we share with, obviously, with City Council. It's important for them to know what we're working on, what our plan is, how often we're trying to do things. And we want to make sure that once we've actually completed some items, what we used to do in the past is we would delete it off the work plan, but then it doesn't always look like we've done a lot of stuff. So what we've done now is when we have something completed, we'll make a check mark on there and basically say that a task is completed. So rather than wasting any time on this, what I'll just do is I will reach out to all of the committee chairs and make sure that we get this updated. I want to make sure that at our next meeting, our next open meeting, that we can actually review it, hopefully finalize it, have everyone kind of vote, and that's the work plan for the year. And then we should be good to go.
So I wasn't able to pull up the work plan, but I do have a notation here that I received feedback from the transition committee, which is committee chair Case. I received feedback from Commissioner Patrick Anderson for outreach. I'm still waiting for feedback from Commissioner Harrington, who's the recruitment committee chair, as well as Commissioner Vaughn, who's the continuing education chair. And you as well, Chair Hilpert, for the policy committee. So those are the sections that we need updated. We need the recruitment committee, as well as the continuing education committee and policy committee updates. And then we'll be all set. I don't know what happened to the agenda, so I'm gonna stop sharing.
All right, well, I will work with Nancy and Kevin, and I will work with myself on that as well. With that, I don't really have any other items or reminders for everyone. I know we're trying to do the best we can with the number of cases we have. Again, as I said a little bit earlier, if as a team you're getting behind or you feel like you can't get cases before we're getting close to that 1 year mark, please let myself know. If we, like I said, if we need to move some cases over to other teams or figure out another way to make sure that you guys aren't overwhelmed. We don't want people getting overwhelmed and then resigning because they feel like they're drowning in too much work. So let Charmaine and I know, and we can make sure things are running smoothly. So with that, I will finish out my chair's report. Charmaine, you're up.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to make this fast. So I sent out 2 revised spreadsheets yesterday and today, I believe. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review the spreadsheet. As of tonight's meeting, we had 63 cases that were assigned to the teams. This number is continuing to fluctuate between high 50s and high 60s, so it's going up and down. Out of the 63 active cases, we had 3 category 1s and 1 category 2 case on tonight's meeting agenda. So we are now down to 59 active cases. So far, we have 2 cases that are ready for next meeting, and I have 1 more case to read from Team 7. So I have that on my list of things to do. Out of the 59 cases that were assigned to the teams, 21 cases have sustained findings. So let me go on to the case assignments for each team. So before I do that, in this fiscal year, the commission reviewed and deliberated on and closed out 112 category 1 cases and audited 34 Cat 2 cases. So that's important to note because that number is very, very high in comparison to our previous years for case review. Team 1 has been assigned 14 cases. 3 cases were on tonight's meeting agenda, and they have 4 Cat 2 cases. 2 cases have sustained findings.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes, you're correct.
Excellent. And thank you for sending me that revision earlier. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Team 2 were assigned 7 cases. The team has 1 case that was sent back to the team for revisions. Commissioner Holtrop, can you let me know the status of that 1 case?
Sure, I'll let you know the status of it when I can. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That case was assigned to the team and sent back, I believe it was 2 or 3 months ago, so it's important that we wrap that case up.
Sure.
Yeah. The team has 2 Cat 2 cases. one of which was on tonight's meeting agenda. So that case, so now they're down to one Cat 2 case. The team has no in custody death or officer involved shooting cases and 0 disciplines to evaluate. Does that sound about correct?
Correct.
Excellent, thank you. Team 3 were assigned 5 cases. Of the 5 cases assigned, 3 cases have sustained findings and 1 case is an officer involved shooting case. The team has no in custody death cases and has also 1 discipline to evaluate.
That's correct.
Excellent.
That's
thank
correct.
you. Team 4 were assigned 13 cases, 0 officer involved shooting cases, and no in custody death cases. 3 of the 12 cases are Cat 2 cases, and 5 cases have sustained findings. Does that sound about correct? Commissioner Case?
Had myself muted. One of the cases no longer has sustained findings, and so 2020-0458 no longer has sustained findings. So
Okay.
IA changed their finding on that one.
Okay. Also, Detective Amato noted at the last meeting, at our meeting earlier tonight, 2 cases that the team has that she needs feedback on.
Yeah, so one of them Poppy is working on, and she's going to let her know whether we can get it done by June the 5th. And then I'm going to give her feedback on whether we can get the, let me see which case. And I forget what the other case is, but it's
due June 19th, I think.
Yeah, June 19th. And so I was going to give her feedback on whether we can get that one done by the 19th, which is quite possible. So thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Team 6, they were assigned 14. Oh, somebody gonna say something? No? Okay. Team 6 were assigned 14 cases. Of the 14 cases, 6 cases have sustained findings, 4 Cat 2 cases, and the team has no in custody death or officer involved shooting cases. Team 6 has 2 disciplines to evaluate. Does that sound about correct, Commissioner Shea?
That sounds right. That sounds correct. And by the way, we do have a case 0401 that wasn't mentioned by Detective Armando. I believe that's due on June 10th.
Okay, I'll note that.
I just sent out an email to you and Brandon. The draft is ready, so I believe you will make. It's possible that you'll make our next meeting.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome.
And Team 7, which is the chair's team, were assigned 5 cases. 3 cases have sustained findings, and 3 cases are past the 1-year deadline. 1 case is a Cat 2. What else do I have? No officer involved shooting or in custody death cases. Does that sound about correct?
Yeah, one of the ones that was beyond the 1 year, we actually agreed to delay that because we felt it was important to work on a changed finding. That's what's ready for our next meeting. And then the category 2 is completed, but that one's delayed. We need to get information back from the department before we can finalize that case. But it's completed. As soon as we have that, we can move forward and it'll be finished.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before I go on to the next item? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. That's good. So feedback on work accounts. So I'm just checking in to see how everybody's doing with logging into the San Diego.gov work accounts. And is everyone using the accounts? I know I've been sending emails still to some of the commissioners' personal emails. I just want to make sure that everybody is transitioned before I stop. I'm hoping to do so with by the end of this week. I want to go ahead and change my email group and just put it as San Diego.gov accounts. So does anyone have any questions for me? You got it now? Is
If I-
everyone okay with me
if I-
doing that?
I was gonna say, if I could just jump in on that, one of the reasons why we need to be using our San Diego.gov email accounts is if there are public records requests that have things to do with our work product, our cases, things like that. We need to be able to use our volunteer commissioner email addresses rather than our personal email. So it's really important for the city to be able to have all that data within the city record system. So I know sometimes it's a little inconvenient to have to be checking yet another email account, but there really is a very good, valid reason why we need all the commissioners to be using their city email addresses. And Poppy, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
I just want to be the grumpy commission member who reminds all of us that we are volunteers and many of us have full-time jobs and 12,000 other email accounts that we're checking. So Charmaine, you are welcome to email me only at my city email address, as long as you understand that I check it maybe every 2 or 3 days, and that's probably not going to change. And I don't mean to be a grump, but this is just the reality. This is not my full-time gig, and I can't treat it like it is.
Yeah, as the chair just mentioned, if you use your personal devices as well as your computers, whatever emails, when you do email commission business, that can be PRAable. So I just want to make that clear. The next item is the administrative support. So our intern, Ashley Soho, she has completed her internship. So I am back to processing complaints again. Woohoo! I have been working on forwarding a lot of those complaints to internal affairs for processing. A lot of the letters are not getting done just because of the things that I have as far as priority. So, but I am still processing those complaints by sending them over to internal affairs. I am really looking forward to us interviewing and hiring for the complaints coordinator, administrative assistant position. So hopefully that will happen soon. The next item is the 2021 NACO conference update. And I mentioned this item previously, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. It's going to be 2 conferences. One is going to be virtual and one's going to be in person. The virtual one is going to take place August 16th through October 7th. And the second one is going to be a smaller in-person conference. And that's scheduled for December 12th, December 13th through the 16th in Tucson, Arizona. And we don't have a final schedule yet, so I would send that out to the commission as soon as I receive it. And that completes my report. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Yes, I do. Yeah, there was an email that was sent out yesterday to our San Diego.gov accounts. It says that all city employees have to go through a mandatory PRA training. And I was wondering whether or not as volunteer employees, we have to participate in that training. I know we have to do the sexual harassment training. I'm not sure whether we have to do the PRA training.
I'm not sure. Do you have access to success factors? That's where all the trainings are. Okay, so maybe not. All of the trainings are put into this separate success factors internal app for the employees.
I actually looked the other day and we don't have access to success factors. So if it is something that's required for us, we have to find a way for us to work around the system or at least the success factor piece.
I can find out if it's for all or if it's just, I'll find out and let y'all know.
All right, any other questions for Charmaine? All right, with that, we're going to kick it over to the police department. And for the very first meeting in quite a long time, Executive Assistant Chief Chris Mcgrath. Welcome back. For those that didn't know, he used to be captain at Internal Affairs shortly after I first came on to the then CRB. So it's full circle, but go ahead. You might actually be on mute still. Still can't hear you. the curse of technology sometimes. We can, let's give that a minute to see if we can get that to work. Oh, now he's muted. Let's see if we can try to unmute. Sorry, we still can't hear you. I guess what we could do,
You can call
Jermaine,
in.
did we ever get a call-in number?
There's a number that's on the invite.
Well, while we're waiting for that, I can skip ahead to the next item. One of the things that we're going to be trying to set up is a meeting. We usually do a quarterly meeting with the cabinet and the chief of police, the executive chief, and then also our new captain of internal affairs. We're trying to get that scheduled. One of the things we're going to talk about is trying to see if we can start doing ride-alongs again, especially for our new commissioners. So right now, usually we have a spot for commissioners to talk about their ride-along experiences. Obviously, no one's been able to do that with COVID. So I think it's something that we're going to talk to them, see what their comfort level is. But my thought is, like, obviously officers are partnered up still. So if we have, commissioners that are vaccinated and they feel comfortable doing it, and the officers are vaccinated and they feel comfortable doing it, doing ride-alongs, I would like to see if we could try to get those started again, because I do think the ride-along process is something that's, I think, really important for our commissioners to experience. Because obviously, when we watch a body camera, we're sitting in a room and we can kind of see it in one way. But I think there's definitely something to be said for actually seeing it live, face to face. So we'll have more information on that eventually. And then I see that there is a room change, so hopefully that works.
How about now?
Yes, we can.
All
hear
right,
you.
through the magic of television, I'm back. Great. Well, no, thank you very much, Brandon. I appreciate that introduction. And I like you said, 5.5 years ago, I was in a different chair. We're in a different rank, and working with many of you that are still on the board. And so I appreciate your engagement, appreciate your dedication and your loyalty to the citizens out there who are very glad that you're in the positions that you are to be their advocate. So thank you very much for that. I want to take a quick second to thank Greg DeNorris for his kind words as well, and all the work that he's done in the past for his communities, not only where he lives locally, but also for the entire city in his efforts to make our city better. So thank you very much, Greg. Also, with Mike Holden leaving, as well as Lieutenant Corey Pick, they did such a great job here. So happy that they're going to be moving on and enhancing their careers. But I also have a couple of folks that are coming into the office. You probably already met Captain Anthony Dupree and Dan Sayasane, who's going to be our lieutenant. They've got extensive experience, not only at command level, but also experience throughout the department, which makes them uniquely qualified to do such a fine job for all of you in supporting what you do. So I appreciate that support. My first day was yesterday officially. And so as you can imagine, I was pretty busy getting briefed up by a lot of people. And one of those persons I got briefed up by was Captain Jeff Jordan, who's been working with Al Guadarrama when he was here to develop responses to the CPP report. And knowing and getting briefed up actually this morning by Jeff before we released it, I knew there was going to be questions. Hence, Brandon, your email today suggesting we can do better. And I fully expected that. So what I would ask is that you give us an opportunity to kind of let you take a look at that and kind of digest what's in that report and with our responses. And then we'd love to hear what it is that you'd like to have continued conversations about.
Sorry, I put myself on mute. Since you're actually on, I mean, is that something, I mean, officially that memo was to the chief of police. Is that something that's officially to us? And if so, are you comfortable with us releasing that? Because we had committed to put whatever the official SDPD response was, we were going to put that up on our website with our memo. Or is that something that we need to?
No, I think the chief is comfortable with you putting that up on the website. I talked to him about that. But again, I mean, if there's something that you feel we need to continue to talk about, That's something that we can do prior to you putting it up, calling it kind of the last and final, but that's really up to you. I'll leave it up to the commission as to whether or not you want to put that up right now and have further conversations about it. If there's any changes, and you probably would just have to redact and edit and put it back on your website.
Got it. Yeah, so we'll definitely we'll share that with the full commission, and we'll probably put that up on the website. Just to kind of let everyone else, here in the meeting know, I did send an email back to them. Obviously, this is kind of the first draft, as we expected. There's going to be some conversation going back and forth between the commission and the police department. One of the things that I did state is there is a lot of comments about referring things to post and deferring to post. And, I think, this won't be a surprise to, I think, anyone. I think as the second largest city in San Diego being the second largest city in California, I really would like to see us lead rather than follow. So, and I hope the police department will be on board with that, but I think we can continue to work together. But like you probably expected, you're probably going to hear from us bringing that up. But I think the community would like to see us be proactive and come up with new ideas rather than just waiting for other cities to come up with best practices and then follow what they've done. I think years and years ago, the city of San Diego was really good with the community-oriented policing. And I'd kind of like to see if we can get back to something like that where we're leading rather than following, but we'll continue that conversation. And also, I guess the other side is that was specifically on the protest piece. There were 5 other policy recommendations. Is that something you guys are still working on, or?
Yes.
I know yesterday was your first day, so you're probably still trying to get caught up on a lot of different things, but
Yep. So your point's well taken, Brandon, about leading and not following. I have to explain to people sometimes that Post is actually a state commission, and that it's a commission that's made up of members who look at the entire state and look at the different ways that they can improve law enforcement, and they make recommendations. So that's where that Post part comes in. It's where all of these commissioners from the state who are on these boards, they take a look at all those things, and they communicate with everybody across the board, whether it's the smallest agency up in Northern California, or it's the largest cities such as Los Angeles, San Diego, or San Francisco. So a lot of thought is put into some of their suggestions and recommendations. And so I just want you to know, it's not something that we're using as a crutch or an excuse. It's something that we really look at because technically they're the experts in best practices for California. And as you know, California tends to kind of lead the nation in how law enforcement tends to follow. So we do appreciate Post and what they bring to us as far as information, but like everything else, it's another piece of information that we can use to make us better. And we don't always follow Post. In most cases, when we do that though, it's for reasons that we're more stricter in our policies, more stricter in our procedures than Post actually would recommend.
Okay, perfect. Like I said, it was a 20-page document. We got it, I think, around 2 o'clock today. So I didn't have a chance to really do a deep dive. I did give it a quick scan. But for all the other commissioners, we'll send that out to everyone so you have a copy of that, and then we'll get that up on our website. And we'll probably try to coordinate some meeting to kind of go over next steps. Was there anything else you wanted to go over from a department side?
Nope, I'm available 6 to 6 every day, 5 days a week. So if you need anything from me, you know how to get a hold of me. Feel free to give me a call or Captain Dupree, and we'll be happy to answer those questions or get you set up.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. I know having you wait till the very last to give a quick 5-minute little talk is a lot of time during our meetings, but we appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Brandon.
With that, we are almost, oh, sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Hi, Chief. Good to see you back. And,
hello, Nancy.
I also worked with Dan Sayason when he was in IA some years ago. Before the time that you were in IA, he was here. So I'm looking forward to working with both of you again.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we're almost done. Does anyone have commissioner comments, questions, announcements?
Brandon?
Yeah.
This is Sheila. I was just going to mention, since we do have new commissioners, do you think we could find out when they'll be able to do sit-alongs again? Those were very helpful, where you can sit in with the 911 and the dispatch.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to try to do is, as I said a little bit earlier, we're in the process of trying to schedule our quarterly meeting with the chief of police. And then Chief Mcgrath will be part of that meeting, as well as will the new, I was going to say chief, almost got a promotion, the new captain of internal affairs. And we're going to try to bring that up as well. I want to try to see what we can do to hopefully get ride-alongs and sit-alongs rolling again. But I think we need to kind of figure out the logistics of, obviously our commissioners and officers and staff, are they vaccinated? Do they feel comfortable doing it? But that's gonna be one of our agenda items. So once we actually have more information on that, we'll report back to the full commission. Anyone else have questions or comments? All right, well, with that, you guys have 9 extra minutes for extra dinner time. With that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, guys.